Fighting gurus back in the lab with the pen and the pad, making everyone mad, asking themselves how come they can't predict like the king, who can't seem to stop winning for him and his team. So it seems all that's left is in the end, his enemies have to turn into friends. Like the old saying goes, don't step on his toes, he's known to eliminate his foes, even the ones pretending to be his bros. So instead I think they rather sit back and let him help make their money grow. And all that starts by you enjoying and taking notes on these shows. Hello my YouTube family, my followers, MMA fans, UFC fans, and the money-making team. First of all, congratulations. We came off one of our greatest profits of all time out of the Bellator card, which I've always told you is my specialty. One of the reasons I even started my channel is because I knew everybody was doing UFC, but hardly anybody I was seeing doing any handicapping for Bellator. And I knew it when you guys can see the type of profits and accuracy I had in Bellator, it could get my notoriety out there faster than if I just try to be another UFC handicapper, because there's like 10,000 of those. But yesterday, out of my tier 1 and tier 2 picks, that's basically our most important parlay pieces. We only use tier 1 and tier 2 in the majority of our parlays. Tier 1 is our safest picks. Tier 2 is our mid-level, medium level, like low to medium level adversity and risk, medium level risk parlay pieces. We went 100% in medium, 100% in low risk tier 1 and tier 2 picks. So even until today, we made a total of around 26 parlays on my combined bet slips. I'll take pictures and show them to you guys today on my video after the tomorrow, because actually then I would be giving away free picks. So I'll do it tomorrow after the event is over today. You'll see that even with 16 parlays still active and open that have to wait till the fights finish today, with 16 tickets that have not cashed in yet, I more than 5 times my money yesterday. So if I bet $100, I would have made $600. If I bet $500, I would have made $2,500. Something like that. I made 5 times more my amount because every one of my tier 1 and tier 2 parlay pieces cashed in. The only parlay pieces that didn't cash in were my last tier 3 picks, and one of those tier 3 picks out of 30 parlays was only put in one parlay. So she only got one of our parlays ruined, and I told the patron a lot of reasons why I wasn't comfortable with picking her. And if it wasn't for like a big 5 or 6 leg Hail Mary type of a parlay, I wouldn't have even thrown her into one parlay. But I made a joke like, you know, she's only beat 2 Uber drivers and a grocery store clerk, a cashier clerk at the grocery store, or a bagger at the grocery store, and 2 Uber drivers. That's the only people that you'll see that she has victories over on her resume. She's got wins over people who have never had wins. Valerie Laredo's hype train finally derailed by a low-level opponent who I've seen get beat up really badly by other low-level fighters. So I thought she might have had a small chance, so I only put her in one parlay. And then the other one, I kind of feel like it was a bad decision. The judges kind of robbed him because he did show the more dominant control time and takedowns. Caldwell, he was in 3 or 4 only. So in a total of like 30 parlays, we only lost about 4 or 5 of them, or 3 or 4 of them. 4 of them about parlays that didn't cash in. There's 16 of them that are still open and active, but the other 14 or 10 or whatever it was that cashed in, out of those parlays, I was able to 5 times my money from Bellator yesterday. And not including the single bets. I had single bets that cashed in. I only made 3 of them, with Jaleel Willis being an underdog for a good amount of time. It was a pick'ems, then he went to underdog, and I slammed him. So slamming him as an underdog, I cashed in very nicely on Jaleel Willis, who was also my freebie play of the day. My entire full Patreon got him as a freebie pick. I told them from the $9 tier and up that they can go all in, and he was the best value play of the day. I was confident in him as a tier 1 pick. even though I said his opponent is very good, I said he's got a dangerous opponent. His opponent's not a fade. He's not a can. I just don't think he's good enough. He's not going to be well-rounded enough to hang with this guy. He's really good. I've made money off of him in the past. I even live betted him as a plus 600 underdog when he was in the second round on the ground. Jaleel Willis was getting ground and pounded, but his opponent, I had posted and noticed about it and posted in my Patreon. This is one of the perks of the Patreon. I said in my posts, his opponent, by the time the round is coming to an end in about a minute, will be a plus 600 underdog. Jaleel Willis will be a plus 600 underdog because right now he's getting ground and pounded, and his opponent, it won't be enough to finish the fight. He's just doing enough not to get stand back up by the referee because he doesn't want to get in a stand-up war exchange with the guy because he's got a broken orbital. His orbital, his eye socket was fractured or broken, and it was swollen. I've seen this happen to people. I've done it to people, so I knew what it looked like. So I made a post, and I said, hey, live bet this guy plus 600 because he had already won the first round. And I knew as soon as they reset them to stand back on their feet in the third round, especially with that broken socket and hadn't regained his energy in the second round being on the ground for a while, he was going to dominate, if not finish his opponent in the third round. So I made a post saying everybody should live bet at plus 600. You'd be crazy not to live bet third round that's going into the third round as a 1-1 against a guy with a broken orbital. So we faded Matt Hamlet, whatever his name is, against Jaleel Willis, who we had already put into several parlays in the bet slips. So we made a killing off him that day, not even including the plus 600 line movement live betting opportunity I found for you guys. If you remember, the post is still there. Just type his name in. Okay, this episode is going to be a twofer. I'm going to give you guys two great value plays for UFC's Garbrandt versus Font card. I'm going to kill some rumors that are going around about this Carla. One of the reasons right now it's at a pick'ems, so you can get underdog money. This is underdog value for a girl like Yan Xiaonan versus Carla Cookie Monster Esparza is a mismatch. Xiaonan should be a heavy favorite. Mark my words. Just like I said, Jaleel Willis should be a bigger favorite, and they had him undervalued. He was underrated. This is the same concept. And the other person that we're going to talk about is another person underrated. So the picks I'm giving you today are very good quality picks because they're both at underdog values and they're both underrated. So just putting these two in a parlay together, I'll get you guys over 3 times your money, more than plus 300 odds. So pay attention. I'm going to give you the reasons. Yan Xiaonan, I don't think anybody would have noticed this if you don't have a fight IQ. One of the best matches you can look back at is against Claudia Gadelha. Remember what I told you when I fight study tapes? I try to find the most common opponent to styles and everything. When it comes, you got to try to find the closest person in the fighter's resume, the person that they fought with that's resembling closest to the style and type of a fighter that they're going to go against. That will tell you if you watch those fights with people that they're very closely similar to, then you can get an idea of how the fight will play out even more better. Now, Claudia Gadelha is a girl who holds wins and victories over Carla Esparza. So having a win over Carla Esparza and now having to face Carla Esparza, let me remind you. Now, Carla Esparza has a loss to Claudia Gadelha. Claudia Gadelha, who beat Carla Esparza, has a loss to Xiaonan Yan. And it was such a beautiful performance. I want you guys to pay attention to something. In the first round, this was a mental warfare success. She defeated her mentally. And if you're defeated mentally in a fight, when you feel defeated, when you feel discouraged, and you feel like your best shot is no longer going to be good enough, and you realize your plan A and plan B are not going to work, now you're stuck with nothing that's as good as your plan A. So if your plan A didn't work, your chances are plan B and plan C will not work because they're usually not the better plans. That's why they're second and third. So her plan A, which was to take her to the ground, nobody wants to strike with a girl like Yan Xiaonan. Her nickname Fury is there for a reason. She lives up to it. She throws at like 7-8 strikes per minute. She doesn't get tired. She's a cardio machine. She's also on a mission to get to the title shot. She said that she wants Rose Namajunas, who's also, by the way, lost to Carla Esparza by submission. She says that she's going to get the title from her because she made it personal when she brought in politics and like she talked about China and people being yellow and some weird stuff like a racist comment that she had made. It really got under her skin, and she wants to get revenge and avenge her people's honor. So she's going to be hell-bent, and they promised her a title shot after this. So this will be her best performance ever. But let me tell you what she did that mentally defeated her in the first round. Claudia Gadelha, after landing her first takedown, and I'm going to tell you why she's easily taken down. It's not because she has bad takedown defense. She doesn't exert her energy in trying to avoid the takedowns, because let me tell you what happened. There's a reason why she won unanimously. Every round, including the round where she was on the ground for a majority of the time, she still won that round. As you can even hear the commentators saying, but they didn't pick up on the reasons. I'm going to tell you something that not even the commentators, they didn't pick up on. And one thing that's going to be very important in this matchup, because Carla Esparza is primarily a wrestler. She's not as strong. She's not as heavy on the top, and she's not as willing to get hit and capable and able to get hit and take hits as well as Claudia Gadelha, and she's not as strong as Claudia Gadelha either. But Claudia Gadelha, being stronger and the type of person who's willing to get into a battle, back and forth exchanges, typically had wanted no part of the ground game of Yan Zunan. I've never hardly ever seen this ever happen before. It was so special and unique. Pay attention to this, okay? She had Yan Zunan on the ground right as soon as Yan Zunan was on her back and wrapped her legs around Claudia. She got into a higher position, so she's able to still strike and keep the full movement and range of her arms, as if it was the same thing as if you're on your feet and if you were striking with somebody at close distance, but just far enough where you can fully extend your arms. So Yan immediately, as if she had trained for this a million times, it was repetitive. She wasted no time in immediately holding the posture of Claudia's body to where she wanted it. So she was positioning Claudia, who was on top of her, exactly where she wanted her, and she was holding her there with her strong legs. Both of her legs were putting her where she wanted her, and that's like a way to gauge your distance. It's a managing your distance. It's even better than if you couldn't do a better job at it than even if you were on your feet and exchanging. What she did was she had a better chance of winning the fight if she just kept doing that and be able to inflict more damage, more significant strikes, more power strikes on the floor from her back, doing what she was doing, than if she was on the feet. And that's why you will notice Claudia Gadelha herself, for the first time ever, and I never see anybody do this from top position, she pushed her opponent all the way to the back of the cage, back of the octagon, so that her back was against the cage. That's why she was able to get up. So she forced her opponent to not want to stay in the middle of the octagon, where most wrestlers would love, as you seen Austin Vanderford yesterday, who dominated his opponent, who I said he was going to dominate and win, and that's why we had him as a tier 1 parlay piece. He kept the fight in the middle of the octagon the entire time. Carla Esparza is known for circling after her takedowns. She circles and then drops them on the ground, which is a special wrestling technique many don't use, which Carla likes to use a lot. So when she does her takedown, she circles the ring, and so that she goes closer to the center of the octagon. A lot of girls forget to do that, and they end up getting stuck with their opponent's backs against the cage, where they can easily maneuver their way back up again. But here's the thing. Carla may not be that dumb, and she's a good enough wrestler to know how to circle around and get her opponent back to the middle. But that's where the most damage, the most strikes, the most lopsided the fight was getting, the most dominating, and the most she was pulling away in the scorecards was getting done was from her back. She was doing such an amazing job with elbows that were vicious. And the punches that because she had full motion, it's not like there's anything behind her. That's why Claudelia pushed her to the back. She wanted to put Xian Yan's back against the cage. A wrestler, can you imagine that? A wrestler wanting to put her opponent's back against the cage so she can, and then she was able to use that as a way to get back up. So she gave her a dilemma. She put her in a bad a position between a rock and a hard place. Look, you want to stay in the middle? I'm going to give you more shots than you can give me because you got to start to keep me down and control me. You can't use just like the same reason we saw Caldwell lose yesterday to Hingo. Hingo was able to beat him from the back. Or that guy from Dana White Contender Series. He was an underdog going against an undefeated guy. I even predicted that he was going to win. I gave you guys a single bet and parlay piece. His name was Souza. If you go back to my Dana White Contender Series picks, I told you guys he was going to beat him from his back. And he spent 90% of the fight off of his back, but he won unanimous decision. Even almost got it finished from his back. So this is going to be one of those situations where Carla will, especially because she does not respond well to getting hit. She's very fragile. She's very afraid of getting hit. She's like a Malcolm Gordon or Jordan Wright. They ball up and they don't like to get hit too much. They try to run away and reset. You'll notice that. So a girl like that especially, and she's outsized. The size discrepancy is night and day. She's much smaller. This is a mismatch in every sense. So I'm not afraid of the ground game. I actually would be happy to see her try to take her down because if she does keep her in the middle, I know what her plan A is going to be. Immediately, she'll go to starting to dominate from the back, inflict some serious damage. Because Esparza is just a wrestler. She's not like some crazy BJJ specialist who's like a Hoist Gracie type of talent on the ground. She's not going to be in any submission threats. She's just going to have to worry about getting control. And a girl who's stronger, longer, bigger, faster, I don't see if she did want to get back up, she'll get back up. Don't worry about it. But I guarantee you, without having to get back up, she'll still win this fight. I seen her do it in a way where Claudia Gadelha within seconds wanted no part of it. She pushed her to the back of the octagon so her back was against the cage so she can limit the movement and the range and not be able to eat those crazy big elbows and shots that she was able to throw with more motion because there was no cage behind her. So she forced Claudelia to do her a favor by moving her to the end of the cage where she can use the her back up against the cage to get back up. And that's why she didn't spend much time down there, and she kept getting up as much as she wanted to and whenever she wanted to. So she didn't even have to do it. She made Claudia do it for her. And in the meantime, she was racking up points. She was doing more damage from her back even than she was on her feet. And she was doing good damage on her feet. So this is a girl who's got such special skill sets. People don't even acknowledge these things. They probably didn't even notice what was happening when all that, I pay attention. I'm a fighter. As you can see, I got marked. If you remember Austin Vanderford yesterday, I even made a post because he had a big cut on his forehead. One of my patrons noticed. I was like, don't worry. Everybody knows that when you're in a dominant position, it's one of the most common injuries you can inflict because everybody knows that the strongest part of your body, I've always even said this in my videos, is the top of your head. So you got to try to block. If your hands are preoccupied doing other things, you can use the top of your head to block punches. We see Brandon Moreno do it, which is one of the reasons I picked him to win over Brandon Royval. I said Brandon Royval in the same position. I seen him not be able to block punches properly, and he eats punches, and that makes him less durable in the later rounds, and he gets hurt, and he ends up bleeding, and the damage looks really bad in the scorecards because he's always bloody and cut up and hurt. I said, unlike Moreno, you'll notice he covers up with the top of his head. He eats up the punches from the top of his head. It shows good fight IQ, good defensive striking, and that was the reason why we picked when most people were going against Moreno before his Figueiredo fight. He had gone against Royval. We had faded Royval. It was a pick'em's odds about. And I told you why Moreno was on different levels. I was just giving that as one of the examples. Well, Austin Vanderford was doing the same thing. He was covering up his shots while he was dominating on the top. He won unanimously because he was controlling his opponent, but at that expense, he had to eat some shots. And one of the shots that landed was similar to the one that you can see on my forehead. It's very common. This is not the first time this has happened to me. It's several times that I've had the same injury in the same spot. It happened to Austin Vanderford. It happened to 2 fighters yesterday alone. It happens to a lot of people in the same spot. You'll notice a lot. It's a position that when you're dominating from the top position and you're trying to use your head, eventually they start to time your head movement and they start to realize you're going to continue to keep blocking with your head, and they adjust their positioning to land in a better spot. After a while, it's inevitable, but it's just flesh. It's not as serious. It goes away. So, I mean, I got a bit of a headache, but other than that, I'm all good. I don't know if you guys can even tell. But back to the point. So Yan Xiaonan should be a heavy favorite in everywhere it goes, every which way you can imagine. She is going to have the advantage. She's going, and you know what? Because as I said, she'll probably be landing. She has a good sense of urgency. She doesn't get too many finishes on her record, but that's because she knows she doesn't need to get desperate and search for it. That she's so ahead on the scorecards, not even the worst judges in the world would ever be able to rob her, because her fights are usually not even close. So she's not desperately searching for a finish. She doesn't have to be overly aggressive and get herself caught in any trouble. So let me see. But I do see that with a girl like Carla Esparza, it would not surprise me to see her get a finish inside the distance, because she'll make the referees very uncomfortable. She'll cover up. She'll ball up. Again, this is a girl who shoots at around 7 strikes per minute, has even a 1.0 takedown average per 15. She, even against a girl like Claudia Gaudella, who went to and got 2 takedowns. You remember what happened before that fight against Carolina? Yan Xiaonan had 5 takedowns of her own. She landed successfully 5 takedowns of her own and still got over 90 strikes significant landed in the 3 rounds only. 100 strikes landed about in 3 rounds and 5 takedowns against her opponent, who's a former fighter for the belt. She was a contender for the belt, Karolina Kowalowski. I forgot how to say her name. She was a girl who was at the top of the division for a long time. She even fought for the belt. She came short against Joanna, but she fought against one of the greats of all time in the women's, division, but she fell short. But that just shows you, when you're fighting former title challengers and your level of your level is pretty high. You're not at some low level. You're not just beating up on cans. Look at her resume. Before there are 5 takedowns, 100 strikes, and only eating 30 strikes. So she more than tripled Carolina's strikes. And Carolina's usually a high volume girl. So she was able to negate that. And she took her down 5 times. She even submission attempt, I think, her one time. So she got a well-rounded game. She can get her own takedowns. Angela Hill, she made look bad. Angela Hill usually gets over 100 strikes in all of her fights. She's a very high-volume fighter. She got 30 more strikes, 70 to 100. She unanimously defeated Angela Hill before Carolina. Before that, she had some other great performances where, look, one of them, she even made 150 strikes. 150 strikes. She won a unanimous decision against Sayuri Kondo, very tough girl. That was her 3rd fight. I think her 3rd fight in the UFC. Her first fight in the UFC against another tough girl, she had landed 100 strikes. It was another She's only won unanimous decisions since she's gotten into the UFC. She's never lost the round. She's never come close to losing a single round. She's never come close to getting knocked down. She's never come close to getting submitted. She's never been dominated. She's won every round since she's got here. And that's 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 rounds. 5 minutes long each. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 50, almost 100 minutes. So about 2 2 hours straight of fighting in the octagon. She's got 2 hours inside the octagon of not losing a round. She's got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 rounds. 18, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Yeah, 18 rounds in the UFC alone. Just the UFC. She's gone 18 rounds in total and never lost one of those 18 rounds. She's 18-0 in her rounds inside the UFC against good big names. Big names, not just cans. All right, so Carla Esparza is not going to have an easy matchup. It should not be at Pick'ems right now. She should be a heavy favorite. She's on a 11-fight win streak. She's got a crazy output. She's got better physicality and size. Look at Cookie Monster's output, 2.29. 5 significant strikes less. Not 2, not 3, not 4. 5 less than her. And guess what? Her absorption rate is even more than her landing rate. So she gets hit more than she lands hits. So not a good. And her takedown defense, not as good. Her takedown accuracy, not as good. It's only 35%. And she's only 5'1". 5'1" compared to Jan, who's 5'5". That's a big difference, guys. Especially somebody who pumps her jab and knows how to use. She's got great boxing, great movement, great angles. Jan is going to dominate. She's in trouble. Esparza's got too much credit, too much credibility to her name value, being a UFC former champion and all that stuff. It puts too much credit for her at the lines. And people, the casuals, they don't know who the other girl is yet. So you could take advantage of that and get her at Pick'ems at underdog value. My other underdog, a guy who's also got who's very underrated. I don't know how many more performances he's got to impress us with. But, like, let's just talk about, okay. My other pick, by the way, is also, let's look at the lines right now. If I'm not mistaken, the lines are at almost Pick'ems, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. There was a while where he was an underdog, too. Yeah, it's about Pick'ems. He's at minus 115, so he's going up from minus 110. He opened as an underdog, just to show you how little respect they have for this guy. He opened up as an underdog plus 110, and they're showing him some love. The fans and the guys who know what they're talking are showing him some love. And I'll explain to you guys why he's my pick, man. And why, remember, I only give you the most challenging fights on this channel. I don't give you the minus 600 favorites, the easy mismatches, and look, my last video, I gave you like 4 picks. I went 100%. Every one of them was right. My last Bellator event before this one, I had 3 underdogs. I had put in parlays. I had given you guys some breakdown videos. 100% of my picks were right. Even using 3 underdogs out of 15 fights in Bellator the week before this last Bellator event, which we also did an excellent job in, I went 100% using 3 underdogs. Guys who nobody was picking for. All right. So anyways, yeah, Font has probably like the best fight IQ in the division. And maybe even the best in the UFC, some would argue. Like a couple of examples I want to bring up from why I think he's got such great fight IQ is, if you remember, right before he was finishing up putting away Marlon Moraes, when he got him on wobbly feet, we saw that he didn't make the same mistake we've seen so many others before him make when they're in that position. For example, the guy who they call the GOAT, the guy who everybody thinks is the greatest heavyweight of all time, Stipe Miocic, heavyweight former champion. He made this mistake in the Francis Ngannou rematch that cost him the fight, that cost him the not getting to get knocked out and losing his belt, because he tried to counter and he thought he hurt Francis and went in for the kill really crazy and wildly, and he ended up getting slept. That's because, like, you got to realize, and it's not just him. Look, like, you're pretty much, when a guy is hurt, it's almost the same thing like when you force a cat into a corner. When you back a cat up into a corner, it wildly responds back. So unless you're going to be a guy who needs to use, mind you, you have your opponent hurt. You're at an advantage. Why would you want to turn an advantage into a wildfire fight like we seen Schnell and Pantoja, like we seen, perfect example that we're talking about, Cody Garbrandt and Pedro Munez, and Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw, and Cody Garbrandt and everybody he's ever fought in his life. So, another few examples, Ricky Simon versus Uriah Faber. The California kid had made his long-awaited comeback and knocked out the dark horse of the division, somebody everybody who thought was going to make easy work out of Faber. He got knocked out because of that. Schnell got knocked out because of that. Stipe got knocked out. Who else? Made the list, I remember. Michael Chandler, perfect example. He even said it in the interview. I got too excited. Same thing happened with Gilbert Burns. He even said it in his interview after the fight. I saw the finish. I got excited. He forgot all his fundamentals, his basics. He went in like a madman trying to get the finish and instead got finished himself and let the tables turn and go back into the direction of the champion. So the thing that Rob Font showed us in his last fight is a thing that only champions are made out of. It's composure when you see, and he still had the sense of, here's the best part. He did react. He did show a sense of urgency, but he did it. He went from being like a good striker, clean, good, so he's always had good, clean, to now, because he heard his opponent, he went from regular like kill mode to beast mode. He stepped everything up. His offense, his defense. You saw him get tunnel vision. He's locked and loaded now. He's focused, laser focused on his opponent. Everything went up. His guard went up. He went in for the kill. He locked into it. He realized this was the moment where I can go from 0 to 10. 0 to 100, and he went all out and he got the finish the right way. But he did it calculated, systematically, methodically, with precision, with perfect movement, offensive and defense. He didn't lose. Did you see what Adrian Yanez said against, perfect example, a guy I'm really high on, who I said in the post-fight and in my breakdown video, he shows signs of being one of the greats that you usually don't see in the new prospects. You only see it in the veterans and some of the greatest of all time. He said, hey, I watch fight tape on Gustavo Lopez, and I've seen that when Gustavo's been hurt, he usually has found a way to come back into the fight and knock his opponents out while they were trying to put him away because they saw him get hurt. So what he did is when he saw, there was a couple of moments where he hurt Gustavo and we saw him just back off and slowly proceed with still a lot of caution. And he didn't force the finish. He knew that if he can get him hurt once, he'll get him hurt again and again and again until the moment presents itself where he could do it without being desperate, without being at risk, without being foolish. That difference alone, compared to even in his most recent win, if we got to go back and look at how did Cody Garbrandt win his last fight, he did the same thing that he did that got him knocked out. He's not learning from his mistakes. He's repeating them. He's just getting lucky sometimes. He got lucky this last time because he was the faster guy. He was the more lucky, the first to land, more precise maybe even, but speed and power is really what we're impressed by the most. It's not about anything else other than that. It was a pissing contest that day. It was not a martial art display of great performance of martial arts. It was just a pissing contest. Two guys slugging it out. Whoever gets hit first and drops. And if you're going to play that with Rob Font, who's got a reach advantage over you, who's got a durability advantage over you, he's got a steel chin, not a glass chin, like we've seen Cody have a reputation for, being somebody they call him Cody No Chin or Glass Chin, whatever his nickname is now. So that advantage goes there. If you're going to talk about the volume, the advantage is also in the favor. So if you're going to tell me, hey, you're going to witness a boxing fight, these are my questions. Who's got the reach advantage? That's going to go to Font. Who's the more higher volume striker? not just like waiting for the counters, waiting for the one punch knockouts. A guy who knows how to like use his volume and get away in the scorecards. Or that goes to Font. All right, who's a good jab? Who uses a good jab? Who's really good with his jab? Because jabs are important. They set up your strikes. They keep your opponent at the end of your punches and at a distance, and you manage everything. So jabs are super important in a boxing fight. They win fight. Usman, his own trainer, said that you're a champion because of your jab, and that was one of the only things that I focused on in the breakdown video before the Usman fight. I kept talking about 90% of my breakdown video was about his jab and what it was going to do to him, his opponent. I mean, yeah, same thing here. Look, another advantage is going to have to go towards his. Even Font himself said, I know that Cody doesn't respond well. He shows bad IQ and he gets very emotional and invested emotionally and discombobulated and sloppy when you start to frustrate him on the feet. If he gets frustrated, he throws all fundamentals out the window. He looks like a madman. Did you see he looked like a guy who's never had a day of he's never slept a day inside the gym, had no training. And that way, if you look at that Pedro Munez fight, everything was so bad, so wrong in his striking. I mean, he was even hitting with the palm of his fist. It was just so bad. It looked like he was slapping him with his palms. It wasn't even a punch. It looked like a Carlos Felipe punch. So bad. And his footwork, the way he threw it, the hips, is so bad, man. Especially from the hips, it's terrible. I just can't begin to start listing the reasons why it was such a bad display of martial arts and striking. So that concerns me because that was not that long ago. But that's just, is he gonna get into that? Like, when he's winning the fight, when he's doing well, we see a good version of him. But how do we know that's gonna happen? How do we know that Font isn't telling the truth, that he won't frustrate him with his jab because he likes to use it? His jab is what got him the finish against Moraes. Just the jab alone, he was able to utilize it so effectively. It was wobbling Moraes. Moraes is another guy who's known for a bad chin. So, what if we see the same thing happen with... So you got to ask yourselves these things. Plus, another question is going to be the cardio. See, like when you're just the entire time you're willing to just tip tap, pressure, tip tap, like when you're just tip tapping the entire way, like a Max Holloway type of a game plan, you never get tired. You can go 30 rounds like that. But when you're overloading on your punches and you're running it and chasing after it, it can get a little bit taxing on your. So I would even give the slight. They both have pretty decent cardio, but if I have to give that edge, that's another one that I'm going to give in the favor of Rob Font. Everything is going in the favor. I mean, this guy, keep in mind, man, this guy even holds a win. The current Bellator champion, the guy who's undefeated in the Bellator banner, under the Bellator banner, he's their current champion who just defeated Juan Archuleta. It's one of the Pettis brothers, has a loss to Rob Font. Rob Font should have more respect under his name. I don't know why they're not valuing him, giving him enough credit at the lines, but man, minus 115 over a guy who's lost like his last 3 out of his last 4. If I'm not mistaken, let me check on this. One second. And also, did you notice that the size discrepancy between them in the stare downs and the face-offs? Yeah, and he looked way bigger and longer. But yeah, look here. He lost 3 out of his last 4. And Rafael Assunção, that defeat, I don't know, man. Like, he's kind of at the end of his career. He shouldn't be really fighting at this level anymore. Like, if he's not going to retire, he should step down. Maybe that's why they gave him for Garbrandt, because he was on a 3-fight losing streak. And they know that he's 38 years old. At this division, that's a dinosaur. What other 38-year-olds? Maybe Dobson, but even then, he just looked terrible. But like, at 38 years old, that's starting to get old in the heavyweight division. Nonetheless, the bantamweights, you're not supposed to be 38 years old in this division. So it's not a surprise that he was able to outspeed and outland a guy who's in MMA years, especially for as long. This guy's got 40 something fights. If you look into his regional scene, he's like the Alistair Overeem of the bantamweights. He's been fighting way too long. He's incurred too much damage. He's been finished inside the distance 4 times so far already. Two knockouts, 2 submissions. So, you know, he's also not doing well himself. Rafael Sensa's on a 3-fight losing streak. 2 out of those 3 were by finish against the guy who's also getting finished. So he's losing against guys who are also not doing well themselves. Again, so he's on the last guy to beat Rafael Osensao is actually Rob Font. Give me 1 second. I'm very sorry about that, guys. I had got interrupted by something important, but I was at the end of the video anyways. I was just going to touch on some more things, like Font is training with killers, and he's been sparring with a guy who's very similar in a lot of aspects to Cody Garbrandt. If you'll remember, a tough Bostonian who just went against Holloway. Calvin Kattar, who displayed such courage and heart, and just you know, he can battle through adversity. He's a brawler, like a good boxer. He's very similar to exactly in a lot of different ways like a Garbrandt, and they're best friends. So having him to spar and train with and emulate all the movements and type of a style that Garbrandt has exactly is going to be a big factor and help him out a lot. Where, you know, that can play a big factor as well, along with a million other things. So please hit the like, hit the subscribe, bell notifications. If you want the bet slips, the parlays, and you want to make more, like how we did yesterday in Bellator, we made more than 5 times our money. I've had some events we made over 10 times our money, and on average, even on a bad day, we make 3 times our money on winning days. 3 to 5 times is like the minimum we'll make. If we're playing it safe. I played it safe yesterday with Bellator, so that's why we only made about 5 times. But this week is a good card. I'm going to make some great investments on it. So parlays are on the Patreon, and prop bets, which my accuracy is it's insane how accurate my prop bets can be. So I'm also going to give you a single bets list of the people you should put single bets on. Most valuable, best value plays. A lot of stuff you can benefit from, and tips and stuff that you'll need to know about before making your bets, and how to make your bets and which ones to allocate your funds towards. Thank you. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Most importantly, leave a comment. Thank you, guys. See you on the next video.